Yokoya is a loser high school boy who lives with his parents. One day, while his parents are away, a maid named Yuki comes to his house and asks him if he would be willing to employ her as his servant. And that is the story of How I Met Your Mother. Yokoya is wary of her, thinking she might be trying to scam him into buying something shady. He then asks her about her previous work as a maid but regrets it as soon as he learns that she is an assassin. In her previous job, she mainly performed assassinations, killing disloyal men who wronged her master. She also reveals that her master is the one who told her to come to this place. Curious about this master of hers, Yokoya asks Yuki about what kind of connection her master has with his family. To his surprise, they are complete strangers. After that, he asks her to show him her skills. Yuki then takes out her knife and precisely throws it at a tree. She quickly looks at Yokoya with a proud face, expecting praise from him. However, Yokoya gets scared and tells her that he doesn't have anyone he needs assassinated. He also doesn't know this master of hers. He doesn't understand why he sent her, so he's afraid he can't hire her right now. Yuki feels sad about this but understands his decision. She then apologizes for troubling him before leaving. On her way out, Yuki feels disappointed and asks herself what she had been so excited for and wonders where she should go now. Suddenly, she hears Yokoya's voice telling her she forgot something. At the same time, a truck-kun appears out of nowhere and is about to hit Yokoya. Not wanting him to get ice guy, Yuki quickly saves him. She has never saved someone's life like this before, so she doesn't understand why her heart won't stop pounding. Seeing Yuki's face, Yokoya starts to fall for her. After giving her back her item, Yokoya starts to feel bad for her and doesn't want her to leave, so he asks her to help him with the cleaning instead. Back at his house, Yuki misunderstands Yokoya, thinking he means a different kind of cleaning, so she takes out all of her knives, ready to use them. Panicking, Yokoya explains to Yuki that what he needs right now is a housekeeper. He just wants someone to take out the trash, vacuum, and do the laundry. Determined, Yuki makes a deal with Yokoya. If she can do all the housework, he will hire her. Little does Yokoya know, Yuki has never done housework before, and she ends up making a mess everywhere. Yokoya looks at her in shock, wondering how she can be so clumsy. Yuki apologizes to Yokoya and tries to clean up her mess but ends up slipping and falling to the ground. Luckily, thanks to her skills, she manages to land safely. Yuki starts to worry, thinking Yokoya no longer wishes to hire her after seeing her mistakes. But he assures her not to worry. He then gives her a towel and encourages her to clean up together with him. Later, after they finish cleaning, Yokoya is impressed by how tidy the room is and praises Yuki for helping him, saying he couldn't have done it on his own without her. Hearing this makes Yuki really happy. Yokoya suddenly realizes he forgot to eat lunch, so he asks Yuki if she knows how to cook. Yuki makes a sad face, which makes Yokoya realizes she can't cook. So he reassures her not to worry because he already has the perfect menu in mind for dinner. He then tells her that she can relax and take a bath first. While taking a bath, Yuki keeps thinking about how Yokoya praised her and can't seem to get him off her mind. Meanwhile, Yokoya can't stop thinking about Yuki either. He doesn't know what to do and wonders if Yuki will come out of the bath wearing only a towel, only to be disappointed when she comes out fully clothed. In the kitchen, Yuki tries to show off her skills by shredding cabbage, expecting praise from Yokoya. He smiles nervously and brings out the food. He asks Yuki if she has ever eaten tonkatsu. She tells him she may have eaten something similar in the past, but she has little interest in food and doesn't remember much about it. To her, food has always been just something to sustain herself, so she never cared about its taste or appearance. Yokoya can't believe this and thinks it's a shame for her to see food that way. He's confident that her view will change once she tries this tonkatsu. After all, it's from Katsuda Side Dish Store, the pride of his town's shopping district. Not only is it cheap, but it's also delicious. Rumor has it that even famous celebrities secretly come for a taste of this tonkatsu. After preparing the food, Yokoya realizes he doesn't know Yuki's name yet, so he asks her. She tells him she doesn't have a name. In the past, her employers called her whatever they wanted, so she tells Yokoya he can call her whatever he wishes. Yokoya tries to come up with a name but gives up, admitting he's not good at it. So, he tells her he'll call her Ms. Servant for now. Yuki suddenly feels strange. She never cared about what people called her before, but now she doesn't want him to call her something that feels cold. She remembers how she became an assassin, the impression she gave her master was how cold her heart was. She doesn't want Yokoya to see her that way. As she eats, she still can't tell if the food tastes good or bad, but compared to before, she feels a warmth while eating. She tells Yokoya the food is delicious. Yokoya is happy and tells her he's already prepared a room for her and that if she needs anything, she should just tell him. This surprises Yuki, as it's not something a master would normally do for her. As they talk, Yokoya notices that Yuki is eating tonkatsu without any sauce. He hands her a bottle of sauce and recommends that she try the tonkatsu with it. After just one bite, her opinion of the food changes, and she can't stop eating. The next day, Yokoya has a nightmare. When he wakes up, he suddenly feels hungry and heads to the kitchen. There, he hears a noise coming from the kitchen. Remembering that Yuki is an assassin, he fears she might be killing someone while he sleeps. He quickly goes to check, only to be shocked to find Yuki secretly licking the sauce. Yuki feels embarrassed and apologizes to Yokoya for her actions. She explains that when she thinks about how any day could be her last, she can't help but want to taste this sauce one last time. Yokoya smiles and asks her if she's hungry, as he is also feeling hungry. He then prepares food for both of them. Yuki puts the sauce on everything she eats and finds it very delicious. She then asks Yokoya if he had a nightmare. It turns out that before she came to the kitchen, she heard a noise coming from his room. Thinking there might be an assassination attempt, Yuki came to his room without knocking, only to find Yokoya crying in his sleep, repeatedly calling for his mom. Yokoya feels embarrassed about this. Seeing him like that, Yuki reveals that she also had a dream. In her dream, she got to talk with the tonkatsu sauce, which told her, "I'm this big, so no matter how much you lick it, it won't run out." Yuki was so happy about this, but unfortunately, when she went in for a lick, she woke up. Yokoya looks at her in disbelief. She continues, saying that even though she had this kind of dream, she still feels happy about it. Because up until now, her dreams have only been about killing or being killed, and she has never felt anything in particular from her dreams or from waking up. This is the first time she has ever felt like she wants to keep dreaming. When she saw him having a nightmare earlier, she felt a little sorry for him and wanted to make him feel better, but she didn't know how, which made her feel sad and unfulfilled. Hearing this makes Yokoya really happy. He tells her that he has that kind of dream every once in a while. But when he was young, he always had nightmares, and whenever he would wake up, he would end up crying. He could never get back to sleep without resting his head on his mom's lap. Yuki then gets an idea and offers her lap for Yokoya to rest on. Yokoya panics and initially refuses her offer, but after seeing how sad she looks, he gives in, which makes her really happy. The next day, Yuki is cleaning as usual, and her skills are improving, which impresses Yokoya. While taking out the trash, they find an abandoned dog at their doorstep along with a letter. The letter explains that the previous owners mistakenly bought the wrong breed from the pet shop. The dog would grow too large for them to keep at home, so they left it at what they assumed was a wealthy family's doorstep. Yokoya is furious about the situation, but there's nothing he can do. Feeling sorry for the dog, he decides to keep it. Yuki reminds him that although the puppy is small, as long as it has a strong will to survive, it can overcome any situation. However, she warns that saving a life out of sympathy can sometimes lead to tragic outcomes. The puppy is unwanted, and unless it grows strong on its own, it might die on the roadside someday. If Yokoya wants to keep it, he must take that responsibility seriously. Yokoya doesn't fully grasp her point because, for him, when there's a life to save, the body acts before the mind. He believes it must be human instinct. He then asks Yuki, "You didn't save me from that truck yesterday out of sympathy, did you?" Later, Yokoya learns that Yuki is actually afraid of dogs. Whenever he tries to get her to hold the puppy, she quickly backs away. When he asks why, she explains that as a child, her teacher left her alone in the deep mountains as part of a training exercise, surrounded by fierce wild dogs. This traumatic experience has made her fearful of dogs ever since. Yokoya feels sorry for Yuki, but he tells her she'll have to endure it for a while. Even if he tries to find someone to adopt the dog, it won't be easy. After hearing this, Yuki decides to face her trauma and makes an effort to hold the dog. Yokoya then asks her what exactly scares her about the dog. She explains that it's the sharp claws, fierce fangs, and piercing eyes that frighten her. Yokoya, on the other hand, doesn't understand, he just thinks the dog looks like a cute machi. While they're talking, the dog suddenly chews on Yuki's finger, startling her. She struggles to keep from throwing the dog away. Yokoya then holds the puppy instead, and it starts chewing on his finger too. He quickly looks at the dog's mouth, wondering why its teeth seem itchy. After that, they go to the animal hospital for a checkup on the dog and then to the mall to buy some supplies for it. On the way home, Yuki tells Yokoya that he is very gentle and that she has never met anyone like him before. In her previous place, there was no tolerance for failure. Because of this, whenever Yokoya treats her kindly, she feels a distance between them. For a long time, all she had to do was complete her tasks, but Yokoya's requests are all new to her. She doesn't know how to become the person he needs. She then wonders if she could meet him like that dog, and if she could know that the world is full of warmth, perhaps she could become what he needs. Yuki then asks Yokoya if she is truly needed. Yokoya smiles and looks at her, saying that the reason she thinks like that is because she must want to give up her previous job and become a normal girl. Hearing this makes Yuki question her life. Killing was the only reason for her existence. That is what she was taught so that someone like her could also feel needed. She then looks at the sunset and wonders if she could find a place to belong outside of killing. Could she understand more about Yokoya and this warm world? Yokoya reveals that when Yuki first came to his house, he was really scared of her because she is an assassin. This surprises Yuki. He then continues by saying that after spending time with her, he realized she is not what he initially thought, she is actually a good person. This reminds Yuki of someone who said the same thing to her. Determined to become a normal girl, she asks Yokoya what she should do. He tells her not to be afraid of failure, explaining that if she is trying something for the first time, it's normal to experience failure. The next day, while shredding the cabbage, the dog suddenly approaches Yuki. Startled, she grabs her knife to defend herself, only to realize that it might be hungry. After feeding the dog, Yuki attempts to pet it but is interrupted by Yokoya. He is impressed by how she was able to feed the dog. As he pets the dog, he suddenly comes up with a name for it, Ajimokitaru. He asks Yuki what she thinks, and she agrees that it's a great name. Yokoya notices that the cabbage has already been shredded and compliments Yuki, which makes her really proud. He then tells her to leave the rest to him, but the dog suddenly wants to play. Yuki offers to handle the dog, determined to act like a normal girl. Hearing this, Yokoya fully supports her. Slowly, Yuki is able to pet the dog and eventually hold it. Later, Yuki finds the food very delicious. When Yokoya asks if she wants another serving, she quickly denies it, but her hand says otherwise. Yokoya encourages her to be more honest with herself and tells her not to hesitate if she ever needs something from him. Yuki then asks him to give her a name. Yokoya asks when her birthday is, and she replies that she doesn't know. The only thing she knows is that she was born during a freezing winter. Hearing this gives Yokoya an idea, and he decides to name her Yuki. It means snow, white and beautiful. At first, Yuki doesn't like the name because it means cold, but Yokoya changes her mind. He explains that, to him, snow feels warm. He shares how he's heard that when fields are covered in snow, the soil and seeds beneath are protected from freezing, allowing new buds to grow when spring arrives. Hearing this makes Yuki smile, and she accepts Yuki as her name. Yokoya suddenly wants to get a piercing after seeing his friend get one, but he's too scared to do it himself, so he asks Yuki to do it for him instead. Yuki agrees to help, but just as she's about to do it, she changes her mind because she doesn't want to hurt Yokoya. She then asks him, "Is this some kind of new punishment for me? Did I do something wrong for you to make me do this?" Hearing this, Yokoya looks confused and is about to respond when the doorbell rings. It's Yokoya's little sister, Riko, coming over to see his dog. The moment she sees Yuki, she's surprised and struck by how beautiful Yuki looks. As soon as Riko steps inside, she's amazed at how much cleaner the room is compared to before. Yuki then introduces herself, leaving Riko in disbelief that her brother has such a beautiful maid. She then becomes furious that her brother didn't tell her about this sooner. It turns out that Riko and Yokoya live in different places. Riko asks Yokoya if their parents know that he hired a maid. He explains that their dad knows, but their mom doesn't because he thinks she would worry if she found out. Riko introduces herself and asks Yuki what her name is. Yuki confidently replies that her name is Yuki. Riko thinks the name is beautiful, and Yuki agrees, explaining that Yokoya was the one who gave it to her. This confuses Riko and asks why Yokoya would be the one to name her. Yuki explains that it's because she's an assassin and doesn't have a permanent name. Yokoya tries to stop Yuki from explaining, but it's too late. Surprisingly, Riko isn't scared. Instead, she's thrilled and asks Yuki to sign her name in her notebook, only to feel disappointed when her sign looked normal. Noticing their disappointment, Yuki apologizes, but Riko assures her, it's fine, saying it just that her signature is very distinctive. Riko then tells her brother that Yuki doesn't look like a killer at all. To her, she seems more like a young lady from a wealthy household. Yuki then reveals that, rather than signing, she's much better at conversation. She can speak around 12 languages, thanks to traveling around the world for work. However, she's never studied calligraphy. Hearing this makes Riko admire her even more. Riko then gets an idea and suggests that Yuki become the subject of her summer research project, to which Yuki agrees. Riko explains that her research diary will be about a beautiful maid who looks like an assassin, which makes Yokoya wonder if that's really okay. Later, Riko asks Yuki to show her assassin skills. Yuki places an apple on Riko's head and expertly throws a knife, hitting the apple perfectly, which impresses Riko. Curious, Riko asks where Yuki pulled the knife from. Yuki explains that she hides them in her clothes. Originally, she carried 16 knives, but Yokoya said that was too many and advised her to reduce the number. Now, she carries only 5, 1 hidden in her clothing and 2 on each leg strap. Riko finds the bell on Yuki's head very cute and asks if it ever gets in the way. Yuki reassures her, saying it's fine because, by the time the sound reaches her target's ears, she's already dealt with them. Riko thinks Yuki's response is incredibly cool. Just as they're talking, a rumbling sound suddenly comes from Riko's stomach, making Yokoya laugh. Riko tells him that she can't help it, after all she is really hungry right now. She then asks Yuki what her specialty dish is. Yuki then prepares a dish she usually makes, although it's simple, Riko finds it impressive. Later, Yuki, Riko, and Yokoya head to McDonald's for some hamburgers. While they're there, they spot a poster for a summer festival, and Riko eagerly wants to go. Yuki, however, doesn't seem very interested at first, but when Yokoya mentions that her favorite sauce will be available at the festival, she becomes excited to go too. At the festival, Riko takes Yuki to try a shooting game. Riko keeps missing her shots, so Yuki takes the gun and decides to give it a try. To their surprise, Yuki turns out to be just as bad at it. After that, Yuki shows off her incredible skill at scooping fish, impressing everyone. She even teaches Riko how to do it too. They then head over to buy a snack topped with Yuki's favorite sauce. Yuki is so delighted that she eagerly digs in. Seeing how much she's enjoying it, the seller gives her extra sauce and an additional snack. Riko then leaves the two of them, saying she's going to buy some drinks. With no other choice, Yokoya decides they should stay put, telling Yuki that if they wander off, Riko won't be able to find them when she returns. While they wait, Yuki tells Yokoya, so this is what a festival looks like. For her, festival days usually mean carrying out an assassination. As she's talking, they suddenly hear fireworks explode in the sky. Riko then returns and hands them their drinks, and together they watch the fireworks. Yokoya keeps glancing at Yuki, feeling happy for her as she seems to be genuinely enjoying herself. On the way back, Riko checks her notebook and realizes that Yuki has already eaten 8 snacks today, so she tells Yuki she's not allowed any more. This makes Yuki feel sad. Seeing this, Yokoya can't help but wonder who's really the big sister between them. Suddenly, a robber appears out of nowhere, trying to escape. As he nearly runs over Riko with his bike, Yuki quickly steps in and pulls her out of the way. Yokoya got worried and rushed over to check on Riko, asking if she was okay. To his surprise, he found her smiling, because it was the first time anyone besides her dad had carried her like a princess. Yokoya feels relieved that Riko is okay, but he's still angry at the robber. Not only is he stealing, but he almost hurt someone in the process. Yokoya thinks the guy deserves a fitting punishment. Upon hearing this, Yuki tells Yokoya she understands before rushing off after the robber. Yokoya tries to stop her, but she's already gone. Yokoya feels bad about the situation, but his sister on the hand, is excited to see Yuki in action. They then decide to follow Yuki. As Yuki leaps from building to building, she eventually catches up to the robber. She throws a knife at the robber's bike tires, bringing the bike to a stop. As she approaches him, Yokoya worries that she might kill the robber. However, his concern is pointless because Yuki has no intention of killing him at all. Instead, she simply knocks on the guy's helmet with her hand, saying this is divine punishment. She then turns to Yokoya and says that being normal certainly makes her hungry, prompting Yokoya to suggest they go buy more of her favorite sauce. As they leave, the police arrive and arrest the robber. Later, Yokoya and Yuki decide to walk Riko home since it's already late at night. Riko can't wait to tell her friends about what happened today when summer ends. She then asks Yuki if she has ever been to school, adding that if she hasn't, she should go because school is a super fun place where you can study, chat with friends, and join clubs. As she talks, Riko suddenly receives a text from her mom, telling her to come home quickly because they're having beef stew for dinner. Excited, she rushes off. Yuki watches Riko from a distance, wondering if this is what a normal life looks like. If so, she also wants to experience school too. Hearing this, Yokoya then encourages her to give it a try, saying it will help her make friends and have new experiences. Several days have passed, and the new semester has begun. Yokoya feels worried, hoping Yuki will be okay on her first day at school. Just then, his friend approaches him and asks if he's heard the rumor about a stunning maid being spotted around town. Yokoya is so shocked hearing this, that he spits his milk everywhere. Another friend adds that he saw her in the library and thinks that for a cosplay, she really went all out for it. Yokoya wonders why she was at the library. As he contemplates this, the teacher arrives to introduce the new student, and to his surprise, it's none other than Yuki. Yokoya can't believe that Yuki has transferred to his class, let alone that she sits right in front of him and calls him master, shocking everyone around them. Later, Yokoya finds out that his sister, Riko, had planned everything. Riko had secretly been teaching Yuki behind Yokoya's back and told her not to say anything because she thought it would be more fun that way. When Yokoya asks Yuki how she managed to transfer into his class, she explains that she used her underground connections to pull a few strings. Riko had suggested that Yuki transfer in as Yokoya's cousin to make it easier for her to be accepted by the school. Since Yuki is a bit older than Yokoya, she thought it would be a good idea to join his class so she could better serve him. Although Yokoya is slightly annoyed that she and his sister arranged everything behind his back, he simply tells Yuki to enjoy school life together with him. The next day, as soon as the bell rings, most of the students suddenly dash out, shouting, "Kitsuda bread." Yuki, confused, asks Yokoya what's going on. He explains that they're all rushing to the school store to buy Kitsuda bread, a yakisoba bread with a special sauce made by Kitsuda. It's a rare treat, only sold on Wednesdays. Yokoya tells Yuki that even if they left now, they'd never make it in time, since their classroom is the farthest from the school store. Yuki, however, has a different idea and jumps out the window. Yokoya tries to stop her, but the look on her face makes him give up. She has the expression of a girl in a dessert shop. When a girl makes that face, it's all over. The means, the effort, the cost, none of that matters anymore. Yokoya looks down and sees a group of people rushing out of the building. This group, known as the Kitsuda Brigade, is made up of those captivated by Kitsuda bread, willing to go to any lengths to get it. Their love for this bread runs so deep that they perform a mysterious dance while savoring its flavor. Yokoya thinks this is bad. At this rate, Yuki is going to collide with the Kitsuda Brigade right in front of the school store. But Yuki suddenly runs as fast as she can, leaping such a great distance that she reaches the store first. After buying the bread, she apologizes to Yokoya, explaining that she could only buy one Kitsuda bread since it's limited to one per person. Yokoya reassures her that it's fine and she can keep the bread. He is fine with croquette bread. Yuki then takes a happy bite of the bread. Because it's so delicious, she decides to split the bread in two and feeds half to Yokoya, making him blush. Later that night, Riko comes to Yokoya's house to spend the night with Yuki. She's always dreamed of having an older sister to stay up with, talking about love and enjoying late-night snacks. Riko once longed for a big sister so much that, at one point, she almost convinced herself that Yokoya was her big sister. Riko then gets an idea and tells Yokoya that if he and Yuki got married, everything would work out perfectly. After all, she thinks Yuki is in love with him. Yokoya doesn't believe it. He remembers the other day when Yuki fed him the bread, he saw innocence in her eyes. There was nothing romantic about it. Riko is shocked hearing this, thinking their interaction was so sweet, and asks him if he has any wedding plans. Yuki then comes over and asks, "Who's getting married?" This surprises Yokoya, but Riko casually explains that they were talking about how nice it would be if Yuki could become her real big sister. She then asks Yuki if she likes Yokoya. Yuki responds that she admires him dearly, leaving Yokoya speechless. Afterwards, Riko compliments Yuki, saying she looks beautiful even without makeup, unlike herself. Yuki responds that she doesn't think so and insists that Riko is very cute. This makes Riko really happy, as she rarely hears such compliments from anyone other than her parents. She then asks Yuki for tips on how to become as beautiful as her. Yuki thinks for a moment and says her skin might have become smoother thanks to tonkatsu sauce, suggesting Riko try it too. Meanwhile, Yokoya watches the two chatting and thinks to himself that they already seem like sisters to him. As he observes them, Riko catches him staring and teasingly asks if he's considering marrying Yuki right now. This makes Yokoya blush. Overhearing their conversation, Yuki asks what marriage is, as she's not too familiar with the concept. Riko cheerfully explains that once Yokoya turns 18, he can marry Yuki, and she would officially become part of their family. Embarrassed, Yokoya tells Riko to stop putting such ideas in Yuki's head. However, Riko smiles and teases him, asking if he wouldn't be happy to marry Yuki. Yokoya, at a loss for words, and eventually agrees. Nearby, a cat is spying on them. The next day at school, Yokoya keeps dozing off during class. Noticing this, the teacher gets angry and throws a piece of chalk at him. Seeing this, Yuki quickly cuts the chalk mid-air, hoping to stop it from hitting Yokoya, only to ends up making things worse. Later, Yokoya goes to the infirmary to have his eyes checked. There, he meets Nita, who has just started filling in as the school nurse, replacing the previous one. After learning why he's there, Nita asks Yokoya to sit on the bed. She then asks if the pretty girl she saw next to him all the time is his friend. Yokoya assumes she's talking about Yuki and explains that Yuki is his cousin. This makes Nita laugh, as she remarks that the two look nothing alike. While checking his eyes, Nita tells Yokoya that he's her type, comparing him to a small animal. Yokoya isn't sure how to respond and can only manage to say, "Thank you." After examining his eyes and finding no damage to his eyeballs, Nita gets up and quietly locks the door. She then starts removing her clothes, attempting to seduce him. Yokoya, confused and frightened, doesn't know what's happening. Fortunately, Yuki arrives to check on him and sees the situation, causing Nita to stop. Nita smiles and tries to pass it off as a joke. Yokoya believes her and tells her not to do something like that again, while Yuki continues to glare at her. Nita sits down and tells Yokoya to come over so she can give him some eye drops, just to be safe. But before Yokoya can move, Yuki pulls him back toward her and tells Nita to stay away from him. Yokoya blushes, recalling Riko's words that Yuki is in love with him. He starts to think that Yuki might be jealous. Nita then tells Yokoya that if he doesn't want to, it's okay, as his injury isn't serious anyway. After they left, Yuki apologizes to Yokoya for pulling him earlier and says she has something very important to tell him. Yokoya becomes nervous, thinking Yuki is about to confess to him. Unfortunately for him, that's not the case. Yuki becomes serious and tells Yokoya that Nita is also an assassin, just like her, which shocks him. In the infirmary, we see Nita sits with her cat, plotting to destroy Yuki's happiness. If you come this far, please consider liking and subscribing for more videos like this. Thank